Chris, we're live.
Great. Hello, welcome to the kickoff for the AHLA Under 30s Gateway webinar series. Today we're talking about how to become a GM by 30. To start off though, before we introduce all of our panelists, I would like to just bring everybody's attention to on the upper left-hand side of your Google Hangout screen, you'll see a little blue box. If you wouldn't mind clicking on that, a group chat box will open up on the right-hand side. And as we're proceeding, if there are questions and that you guys are interested in having asked throughout the duration to our panelists, if you can post them there, and we will direct them to the panelists. Great. Why don't we go ahead and begin with, oh, well, I didn't. Great. Why don't we go ahead and begin with introducing our panelists today. We have Jennifer Wilt, who will be joining us from, actually doesn't say, Jennifer, you have to tell a little bit about yourself here in a second. I'm sorry, I didn't see it there on your little bio. We also have Nikki Carlson joining us, as well as Andrew Quinto. So, Jennifer, why don't you start out telling us a little bit about your background and where you are now, and then we'll turn it over to the other panelists.
Great, thank you so much. I'm Jennifer Wilt. I'm the general manager at the Aloft Hotel in Leawood. First off, can you all hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I actually started in the industry when I was 15 as a busser in the restaurant at the Doubletree Hotel by my house. I just fell in love with the business. I like to help people, and I love to meet new people and just have social interaction. Probably a lot of the same similar stories that you all have. But I actually left the industry and went to school, attended K-State for social work, and did that for a little while, and it was dangerous, so I got out of it and started working back in a hotel and just worked my way all the way up.
Great. Thank you, Jennifer, for sharing that introduction. We appreciate you joining us today. Nikki, would you like to tell a little bit about yourself and your background?
Sure. So I similarly started actually in food and beverage when I was in high school as well, and decided to pursue a career in hotel or hospitality management. And while in college, I got a job in a hotel working and absolutely fell in love with it. After graduating, I went to work with high-end hotels. Can you hear me? I'm having major mic issues.
Chris,
Yeah, I'm correcting you right now.
Chris, you might have to mute yourself if you ask a question.
Okay, we can do that. Let's see. Hang on.
Okay, so long story short, I spent some time traveling around the country working for different companies, and also worked my way up to being a GM, where I am now in San Francisco, working for Noble House Hotels, and I absolutely love it. Just as Jennifer said, love helping people. Not only the guests, but also the associates really make it such a fantastic industry to work in.
Chris, I think we lost Jay.
Hello, sorry guys for the technical difficulties here. I don't know if you can hear me or not, but it keeps cutting out on this end. Okay, great. Andrew, Nikki, well first, Nikki, thank you for the introduction. Sorry about the technical difficulties on this end. Andrew, why don't you tell us a bit about yourself?
Sure. Thanks for having me this afternoon. Andrew Quinto. I started in the industry in about 2006 as a front desk clerk. Got my first GM job back in 2009. I've been a GM for several different properties. I've also done a lot of task forcing over the past about 2 years. And then my current gig right now, I'm the open-end general manager of a Fairfield by Marriott on Cape Cod. Echo what my other panelists, Nikki and Jennifer, have mentioned. We obviously all love the customer service aspect of the business, and for me personally, I love that every day is different inside the hospitality industry. Chris, are you there?
So it looks like we may have lost Chris, our moderator. Either that or he's muted. Okay, sorry about that. It looks like our moderator's computer has gone down. So let me just give, if we can just take a 2-second break, we'll be right back. Okay, sorry about that, everyone. So I'll go ahead and take over as the moderator. Can everyone hear me okay? All the other panelists?
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. Sorry about that, guys. We lost our moderator, fortunately, so I will go ahead and take over. So perfect. Thank you, everyone, for participating in this call, specifically to our great panelists. They're all great examples of what it means to be a leader and to take on a leadership role, especially at a young age. So one of the first questions that I have, and then I'll direct this to Nikki and then Jennifer and Andrew in that order, if you would. What are some of the challenges you guys find being GMs who achieve that level at a younger age, managing staff not only that can be your peers, but that can also be older and a little bit more seasoned in the industry than you? Nikki?
Hi there. Yes, as you mentioned, being a young leader in this industry, you come across many different people of different ages and backgrounds that that may be older than you, younger than you, or the same age as you, and you have to manage them in different ways. I think it's important to be able to really connect with them and on a personal level, and not try to come in as a young leader and just take charge. Understand that people who are older than you are, they're probably seasoned in the industry for a long time, and they have a lot of knowledge, and they can probably teach you a thing or two about service or about the property that you're working at. I also think it is challenging sometimes being a young leader when you're managing up and you're working with people on the same level as you that may be significantly older than you. So I think it's always important to keep an open mind and make sure to take feedback and learn as much as possible from each different person along the way. There will be hard times when you have to have conversations with people that may be older than you, or the same age as you, and you're their leader. And I think that it's just all about your approach and building the relationship along the way. So my feedback would be, again, building a solid foundation with your teams and making sure to solicit their feedback and their knowledge in order to build those relationships.
Great, thank you. Jennifer, what would you like to say to that?
You know, I would also like to echo what Nikki said about, you know, there will always be more seasoned individuals in the industry than yourself, and that can be a challenge in itself. But definitely building that personal connection with them can help, you know, smooth over any situation. If they know that you care about them genuinely, then they'll do anything for you. Another perspective that I actually hadn't thought of or come across until taking on the role, I was 27 years old when I earned my first GM position, and I was the youngest GM in my city, and I was there was one other female GM in the city as well, and she was older. So I felt a little lonely and a little alienated. I've held chamber board positions since I took on this position, and also hotel lodging board positions. And although you're involved with all these great organizations, you know, being a young female and young at that age for being a GM, you're still left out. And you don't really have a lot in common with a lot of the other GMs because they have families and you maybe don't yet. So that's another perspective to consider, is that it can actually be a little lonely at times, and you might feel a little alienated at times, but definitely reach out, make your connections as best as you can, and build those personal connections for your same level out there in your industry.
Great, thank you. Andrew, what advice do you have?
Nikki and Jennifer did a great job covering it. The one thing I will add on into it is that really try to learn the different generations you'll be managing and how they communicate. Obviously, you know, the baby boomers aren't going to communicate the same way as us millennials will. You know, we love our text, we love our email. You know, the 56-year-old front desk clerk and auditor, they're not going to want to get a text from you. So really just recognize that, learn from it, learn the best way to communicate with everybody, and I think that will be very beneficial to you.
Great, fantastic, thank you. What is one pitfall that you found along the way that you never thought you would encounter during your time leading up to being a GM? And Andrew, I'll start with you with that question.
Sure. So one of the biggest pitfalls that I kind of notice people getting into is, you know, they've been in a position for X amount of years, and they kind of, you know, just fall into a daily routine. They get stale. They might lose their love for the industry, and they don't have any room to grow, and they're just happy, or not happy, but they're just content with being in that position. So when that happens, the customer service kind of starts to fall down on that position, and furthermore, they just don't want to improve. So I think keeping it fresh, keeping motivated in your position, and loving what you do is one way to avoid that pitfall.
Great. Jennifer, do you have anything to add to that?
It's actually kind of similar to Andrew's perspective. It's just maybe a sense of entitlement. You know, if you've been at that location for a long time and been in your role for a long time, and maybe that next step opens up, don't expect to just get it. You know, you have to really work for it, and don't let your employer or your manager see you just kind of being complacent and, you know, the day-to-day, you know, getting that rut. Just don't ever think you're entitled for it. You really have to work hard for it.
Great. Nikki?
You know, I second both of those opinions, and that was actually exactly what I was going to say. Just to reiterate, you know, you aren't entitled to the next position, and it is important to stay fresh and relevant and challenge yourself and be a self-leader. I think self-leadership is very crucial at every stage along the way. If you're a front desk agent trying to strive to, you know, be a supervisor, and also as leaders we have to help those individuals and try to inspire them to get to that next level. And if they're happy where they are, we need to keep them motivated so that they bring the best level of customer service to our guests.
Fantastic, thank you. So along the lines of achieving or becoming a general manager, there's a lot of hard work involved, as you guys have said. And what do you find is the biggest hindrance in achieving work-life balance, knowing you have so much to do to get to that role? Jennifer, I'll start with you this time.
Well, Jason, can you be a little more clear? Biggest hindrance to achieving the next level?
Or the biggest hindrance, I'm sorry, to work-life balance, knowing you have to work or you have to exert yourself to a certain extent in order to become a GM.
Well, I think that a lot of the time in our industry, and maybe I'm not going to hit this one head on, but I'm going to do my best. Finding a work-life balance is very hard. I opened the hotel and I was single. I got engaged before the hotel opened. I got married before the hotel opened. And now I have a wonderful husband and 2 little kids under the age of 4. I never have a balance. So the hotel is very demanding. My family is very demanding, and yet I still need time for myself. So I think in this industry, though, you particularly like climbing the ladder, it's hard for you to balance education and work because work is extremely demanding, and you just have to communicate to your employer that your school life is still very important to you if you're still attending school, you know, and just really finish and get that degree, because a lot of people in this industry just start working, and don't accomplish their personal goals. So really keep your personal goals in mind and work for them, and your employer will see your dedication with that and will reward you as well.
Great, thank you. Andrew, do you have anything?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'm the best example of this. I know at my second property that I took over, it was a trouble property, so I turned over about half the staff in a month. So I was working 100 hours a week, so I didn't have any life. But that's what I was willing to do to kind of prove myself and what I needed to do to get the property in a forward-moving path. I think now that, you know, I'm on a different property, I'm opening a property, it's a little differently, but if you get the property stabilized, you'll be able to kind of balance that out more on a daily basis.
Okay. Nikki, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, kind of piggyback on both of those. You know, it is a give and take, and there are going to be times in your life. In particular, I can reflect back to my times as an assistant front office manager, you know, working crazy, ridiculous hours back to back, 7 days a week, and I thought that there would be no way for me to ever find a balance. But I think the give at that point in my career allows me to take a little bit more right now, and there are days in the industry where, you know, we give 12, 14 hours, but then, you know, maybe we can take a little bit of time, and we have to find those pockets of time to be able to do things for ourselves outside of work. I think it's very crucial to have personal goals along with work goals. It's something that we set quarterly for the company I work with, and we strive to push our staff to achieve their personal goals. We want to make sure that they also have a work-life balance, and I think that we have to lead by example in that way. But again, I think it's a give. You're going to give some at certain times, and then there will be times when you need to take a little bit of time for yourself and focus on something different.
Fantastic.
That's really great. I love to hear that your company does that. That's awesome.
Fantastic. Thank you, guys. So I have a question from one of the attendees that submitted this to us. And the question is, and this is open for you guys to answer in whatever order you see fit, what is the best piece of advice you received during your professional career?
I'm happy to go ahead and answer that. The biggest piece of advice would probably be just learn as much as you can and always ask questions, always ask why. The more knowledge you're able to take in, the better off you'll be, the more suited you'll be for you know, other positions. So just because you're a front office manager, you know, start asking questions about housekeeping, getting involved in that department, getting involved in the food and beverage side of it. Learn everything you can, and then just grow from there.
Great. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to share?
Yeah, I think the best piece of advice I've ever received is, as soon as you're comfortable with something, it's time to change it up. So whether it's a routine in your personal life or in your work life, a process, a procedure, a guest experience, as soon as you think the process is working perfectly, it's time to change it, revamp it, enhance it. So if you go to work every day and you take the same route and you go straight to your office and you put your book down and you go on your email, then you should change that. You should walk your property. You should walk your property a different way. You should go to the restaurant first. And that also goes for guest experience items. So as soon as something's rolled out and it's working like a fine-tuned machine, then it's time to change it again. It's time to enhance it. And I think what this does, it makes us, instead of having something on a to-do list or a procedure to roll out, that we roll out, we mark it off, it's done, and hopefully it's working correctly. This keeps everything always evolving, and it affects our guests and our associates and keeps everybody really engaged in the process of how to do things different and with more innovation.
Great.
That's great. I would just like to add that you should, one philosophy that I've always worked with is you should always be better than your boss. So if you strive for that, then you're, destined to have success or take their role. So when they're ready to move on, so always try and be better.
Fantastic. All great advice. And along those same lines, I want to take another question that was submitted to us and ask Nikki to answer this first, and then you guys participate along the way. But it says, how long do you dedicate your time on one position before moving on to a higher position? And Nikki, you did say that if you get complacent or comfortable, it's time to switch it up. What about it in your career growth?
So I think it's different for everybody, but for me, I've been a person that's moved a lot really quickly. I think that in managerial roles in hotel operations, 2 years should be your max. That allows you to establish the groundwork, make the changes you want to see, and see success. And then from there, look for your next step. But I also think it depends. It could be 1 year and you're killing it and you're ready for your next thing, and it's open and it's the perfect opportunity. And as long as you have had those conversations with your boss along the way, I think it's important to always be open so that your boss understands where you see yourself, where your next role is, so that they can help you get there. And also, don't just leave because you want to leave. The grass isn't always greener. It's just different grass. So make sure that it is the position that is going to help you get to that GM role, as fast as you want. Keep it on the trajectory of your plan.
Great. Anyone else have any advice along those same lines?
Yeah, I don't know if there's a set time range that you need to be in a position before you move on. I think for me personally, it's whenever I feel that I've learned everything that I can in that position, that's usually a good indicator that I'm ready for kind of the next role. And if when I was a FDM to an AGM to a GM.
Great.
And I echo what Andrew said. As long as you feel like you've mastered everything that you possibly can out of that area, then go for the next step. I was moved up at almost every 9 months at a 4-diamond property, which allowed me a lot of growth and a lot of knowledge to gain. But you should also talk with your organization, because it's not really just about you. It's how you fit into your organization and what their big game plan is. So you want to align yourself with them and let them know that you are flexible and that you're willing to help them get to their goal as well as you get to your goal.
Great. And along the same lines as, learning everything you can in that role, have you guys ever felt that you knew exactly what your next role was going to be like and that you were 100% prepared to fill that role?
Yeah, I think so. I think kind of in my corporation, my organization, they were very clear on the expectations and kind of the movement of where we're going. So it wasn't, a jump of we didn't know what the next role was. I knew from being an FDM to an AGM, obviously the next role would be a GM. So I think I felt I knew I was ready once they felt I was ready to be a GM, they made that change. I keep muting myself. I don't know if that's clearly answered your question, but that's...
Okay. Does anyone else have anything to add to that?
I always felt like I was prepared for the next step, and I think that in our industry you kind of decide if you want to go operations or if you want to go sales to work your way up. And I knew I didn't want sales because I didn't like the kind of cattiness of that area sometimes. And I really like to be hands-on and get in the dirt with everybody. So I think once you determine that, then the path, you can kind of, visualize yourself moving through it.
Great.
Same for me. I think that, I always felt well prepared for my next endeavor, but of course, each position you take that's higher up comes with new challenges and different ways of thinking. Once you get to AGM role to GM role, really your scope of how you look at the hotel has to start shifting to a really global perspective of, food and beverage, sales, marketing, and operations. Whereas for me as well, also coming up through operations, that's my comfort zone. So you have to start pushing yourself out of your comfort zone and engaging in areas that you may be a little less confident or have a little less knowledge. But once you do that, it's going to better prepare you to when that GM opportunity comes open.
Fantastic. So what do you guys do to better understand other disciplines then? Because as the GM, you are that token figurehead. You are the top of the food chain for every discipline in your hotel. So how do you understand and grasp how those departments operate and better understand how to meet their needs, since it's not an operating department? So accounting or facilities or some those departments.
So for me, I like for sales and marketing, for example, I attend business reviews that they have on a daily basis. I make sure that I'm present in sales meetings, and I started doing that when I was a director of rooms so that I could start getting experience in that area. From accounting standpoint, I think the financials are such an important part of what we do when you get to the GM level, and you need to learn along the way the foundation. So I spend time with my controller. I sit down. I have them teach me. I learn. And then I try to work through problems myself, and I learn by doing. So I set goals and try to go from there. I think you just kind of have to dive in head first and get your hands dirty and not be afraid to maybe quote unquote look dumb if you don't have the answer. You don't have to have all the answers. There are other experts in other areas, and that's kind of what makes everyone a team and makes the whole ship successful.
Great.
Yeah, I agree. I think, if you're a GM, you should have probably a base knowledge of all the departments, especially if you're supervising them. So, you go in with this base knowledge, and then you don't have to be an expert, but, as my other panelist said, just communicate, meet with them, have them teach you things, learn, and then it's an ongoing process. It's not, day one and you know everything. You're going to always continue to learn. I'm sure we could all agree we learn something new every day. So it's just communicating, learning, and growing.
Great. Did you have anything you would like to add, Jennifer?
Just at smaller hotels, it's a lot easier to have your hands in everything. Certainly, get a good overall knowledge working at whichever property you're at now or in the future, and ask questions. But being a GM at a small property for an Aloft, I have 156 rooms and 35 staff members, so it's really easy to be involved with every department on a daily basis and just learn. So.
Fantastic, thank you. So what kind of goals do you guys set for yourselves, or what kind of goals would you say our attendees should set for themselves in order to achieve their next role, or in order to set their sights to become a GM?
For me, one of the only goals that I really set at different positions is it's to be the best X I can be. So, for instance, as a front desk manager, I'm going to bust my hump to be the best front desk manager I can be, and then from there, as I grow into the next position, AGM, I want to be the best AGM I could be, and currently I want to be the best GM I could be, and kind of just, I think if you set that goal, you work hard towards it, it's going to help you, it'll help you stand out, and then you'll kind of help you advance into the next role.
Great.
Just like Andrew.
I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay. Andrew said just be the best, and I've always had the philosophy of be the best at what you're doing, and also work for the best. So I've always set my sights on the best properties and the best management companies that I'm around.
Great. Anything to add, Nikki, or?
Yeah, I think, obviously as an individual, I set goals personally for myself, and I think I've achieved them when I see goals reached by my staff. So whether that's, as an assistant front office manager, as a front office manager, setting, employee relations goals, whether that's based on employee engagement surveys that might be taken annually, or, your guest satisfaction feedback scores that come in from the guests. So those are a few ways along the way that I've measured to know if I'm actually being the best, is by understanding if my team is the best and if our guests think that we're the best. And then obviously from a housekeeping standpoint, you shift a little bit. It's really a major focus on on the associates and how you can keep them engaged. So again, setting different goals to ensure that you are the best.
Great. So it looks like we have a question that keeps getting brought up pretty frequently. And the question, so I'll answer this to you guys, is going to grad school beneficial for being a GM?
My opinion is no. I think that if you are dedicated to continuing your education, get further your education in business or in international business, that would be my suggestion.
Great.
I agree. I definitely don't necessarily think it's necessary. If it's something that someone wants to do, that's fantastic. But I won't select a resume because they have a master's degree over somebody who maybe has a significant amount of experience actually hands-on. Because I think in this industry we learn so much actually being hands-on day in and day out. But again, I would never. I think continuing education is incredibly important, just as Jennifer said, and that's different for each person, whether that's just classes, in your local community, or business classes, and through different avenues.
And I agree 100%. I would hire someone with experience over education any day of the week. You'll get someone coming in with the education saying, well, this is what they showed me and taught me in my business class. And it's like, well, that's great, but that doesn't really translate to what we do here on an everyday basis. And I, personally, I'd hire someone probably with an industry certification over a, continuing or a education. So if I see that they have a CHA or they have another AHLA certification, that's going to stand out more to me than say their master's degree.
Fantastic. Are there certifications? Andrew, you mentioned being CHA. Are there other certifications that the panelists see or are looking for when they look at a resume?
For me, I just want to see that you're involved. So whether you're serving on a committee, whether it's for the AHLA, a local state committee, or if you have a certification. And there's certifications through the American Hotel Lodges and Educational Institute from line staff all the way up to the CHA. So you don't have to be a GM to start before you start getting your certifications. There's the Certified Guest Service Professional certification. There's the Certified Hospitality Supervisor certification. So when I see those things on a resume, it shows that you're dedicated to the industry, you love what you do, you want to be here, and you're dedicated to continuing to grow. So those stand out to me.
Great. The rest of the panelists, do you guys have anything specific that you look for?
I would second that. Just being involved and understanding if someone's on, a local community board or involved in, a young travel professional association in their town, and as Andrew mentioned, the many opportunities that are out there online to further your education along the way, I think is important.
Great. So what are some key traits that the industry looks for when putting someone into a GM role?
So I've actually interviewed and hired GMs for when I was doing my task force for some of our other properties. So kind of for me and my management company, what we look for is we want someone who's a leader. They need to get the respect of the staff, and they need to learn to build a strong team. I'm sure my other panelists will agree with me that, a a property that's doing great, it's very easy for the GM to sit up and say, oh, it's doing great because I'm great. Well, that's not the truth. The truth is, the property's doing great because the line staff is great. So it's really building a great team around you and having the respect in the employee relations. The other thing is communication. They need to be a great communicator and communicate to the staff. And lastly, for my management company is we're huge with the GM's charged with the overall results of the property, so the financials. So the revenue, GOP, they're the ones we're going to if there's an issue. So financial knowledge is strong for us.
Great.
Absolutely, I agree with that. I think that leadership is the number one quality that I look for when hiring a GM. Because if you don't possess good leadership qualities, then it's not good. So transfers down.
Great, thank you, Jennifer. Anything to add, Nikki?
Yeah, just to kind of piggyback on leaders, when I think of leaders that are being looked for in the industry, I think it's really an innovative leader, so somebody who's willing to step outside the box and be creative and do things a little bit differently, because we are at a time in our industry where guest retention is the most important thing. And it's important for us to really use innovation and think of different ways to ensure our guests are having a great time so they continue to stay with us. And of course, obviously that leads to financial gains and whatnot. So I think it's important to be creative, and there's no idea that's too crazy. I think if you can try something that's thought really highly of, obviously with sound fundamentals and backing as to why it would work.
Great. Do you guys do you see that there's an advantage to changing brands and markets and even maybe service levels as a means of diversifying your experience as a general manager?
Jason, I think that that's key to being a good general manager. I think that building a good knowledge of full service and select service is important, and also the brands. Especially what your end goal is. Do you want to work for a corporate office someday? Do you want to get out of the GM role and move forward in your career and be a regional or whatnot? It's very important for you to have a broad knowledge of the different brands. But also, I think that starting your career in a full-service property really allows you to set the bar for your standards really high and get refined attention to detail and learn all of that you can then apply later in your career that you might not get from, more of a limited service type property.
Great. Does anyone else have anything along those same lines?
Yeah, I agree completely. I mean, every brand's different, every market is different, the service levels are different, so the more experience you can get, the more you'll learn, the more desirable you'll be. Being able to sit here and say, hey, IHG does it this way, IHG Kimpton does it this way, Hilton does it this way, Marriott does it this way, that's a great thing to be able to do. But that doesn't mean to look for a new property every 3 to 4 months. But as opportunities come your way, definitely explore them, especially if they're with different brands, markets, service levels.
Great. Nikki, did you have anything you'd like to add, or?
Nope, I agree with all those points. I think it's super crucial.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing. What do you guys, or can you guys each give us an example, starting with Andrew, of one experience you think prepared you most for becoming a GM?
Sure. I think it was probably when I was a FDM. My GM was out on vacation for the week, so I was the MOD, and we had a very bad windstorm. We lost power for, I think, 3 to 4 days. So being that point person on the property with all the staff coming to you, so guiding the staff, dealing with all the guests, and no one's happy that we lost power for 3 days. You don't have any hot water, things along those lines. I think that really gave me insight on what it was to be a GM and be the property manager.
Great. Jennifer, do you have anything?
Yeah, I was the front office manager at a 729-room, 4-diamond property, and very busy property. And when you were the FOM, you were also the MOD, manager on duty. And just having the MOD tagged to you every shift was very entertaining and really created a crazy day for you. So I ran the AED on individuals having heart attacks and saved their lives. But I also responded to security calls, and we are attached to an upscale shopping center, and there were always things going on, but there was one day where we had reports of shots being fired on the lanai walkout to the pool level, and I ran the entire building up the stairs, down the stairs, 729 room property, 20 floors, and tried to find a shooter and couldn't find one. So really working with the police and working with security all the time and working with all of the departments to ensure that the convention hotel ran smoothly was very informative and very helpful to gaining my next steps.
Incredible. Thank you for sharing. Nikki?
When I was a director of rooms in La Jolla, circumstances led me to be the acting general manager, actually, and at the time I was the front office manager, director of rooms, and acting GM. So the workload was very heavy, but it allowed me to dive into basically everything in the property. It was trial by fire. I had to learn on my feet. I had to make decisions, report to owners suddenly, and at a time when I had never done that before. And I think that getting that exposure allowed me to understand what it would take to be a GM a little more clearly, because as we grow up in the hotel, the whole aspect of owners and reporting to them, I think you don't really get exposed to really until you're a general manager. And that situation and those several months of time really helped kind of define my leadership as a general manager and help me get to the next level.
That's great. Thank you. So we have a question that has moved up the line in popularity, and so we're going to take a quick step back and talk a little bit more about sales. But the question is, it came from Nicolette Harrington. As a GM, how much do you involve yourself in sales for your property? Do you get your hands on there as you would for the guests and the line employees?
So for me, I actually, I do. I'm involved in all site inspections that come through the hotel, whether it's creating unique experiences for the guests. I like to be copied on all of the pieces of business coming in, just so I can understand what the potential opportunities are, and be an advocate for both our revenue side and the sales side, because as we all know, they tend to bicker a little bit. So sometimes I can be that middle ground and help sway a decision. And then, of course, from a service recovery standpoint, should anything go wrong with, a potential a client who might be bringing us business or a meeting group, it's important to be involved in all areas. So, I'll check all setups on banquets that might be going out on a specific day and whatnot. So, yes, it's important to be just as involved there.
Great. Andrew?
I'll take a different approach. It might be my personal feelings that I'm not a salesperson. I don't, but anyway, so I kind of, mostly for select service properties, the salesperson is out of the property a lot. They're, doing the corporate meetings and things like that. So I don't have the daily interactions I do with, say, my front desk staff or my housekeeping staff when I'm walking the property. So I tend to require my salespeople to do kind of more reporting than I would for, say, my front office manager or my other managers. So, we meet at least weekly, maybe twice a week, and we go over the reports. I'm not going to have my FOM send me a report of what they did the entire week because I know I saw what they did. Whereas my sales manager, who's out on the road, I want to make sure they're out there selling and they're not, having margaritas on the beach somewhere. So, and I'll follow up, and I'll occasionally go on sales calls with them just to see how they're doing. But I try to back off a little bit and let them do their thing. And, salespeople are great as long as the revenue's good, and unfortunately they're the first ones to blame when the revenue's not good. So.
Great. Jennifer, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
I'm probably a good cross between the two of them. I work very closely with my DOS just on a daily basis of always checking in with her, making sure she's up on everything, see if she needs anything from me. But I am definitely more involved in the operations than I am in sales. I have a great director of sales and marketing. I'm not a marketing major, so I leave all of that to her, but I certainly want to be involved with knowing who she's booking at what rates, and making sure that that rate's getting pushed as much as we can. So.
Great, thank you. I have a question here that was also moved up in popularity. The question is where do you believe your passion for the industry came from? And if each panelist will give respond to that question, that'd be appreciated. And maybe we'll start with Nikki.
Sure. When I was in junior high, I just thought I wanted to be in hospitality. I traveled, I stayed at nice hotels. I thought would be such a fun, it was just so fun, and the people were so great every time that I just was like, that's what I want to do, and that's what I did. Honestly, there's no major story of how I got into the industry. I felt a passion and I felt excitement when I traveled with my family. Whether it be big trips or small trips, I enjoyed the luxuries of the hotels, and I thought that it would be a great industry to work in.
Fantastic. Jennifer?
Very similar to Nikki is when I traveled when I was in junior high. I just love the excitement of exploring new places, and I know it might be silly because they weren't Five Diamond by any means, but I just love the excitement and seeing the new designs in the hotels. And I actually had met a concierge at the DoubleTree in St. Louis one time, and I just remember really thinking that that was a job that I wanted. And so I was very excited when I got the call that I got my first job at a DoubleTree here. And I love to travel, and still to this day I travel any minute that I can get. So
great, thank you. Andrew?
Yeah, again, I mean, I will echo that. I love to travel, but for me, I was going to school for criminal justice. I wanted to be a cop since I was a kid. But I needed a part-time job, so I started working at the front desk while I was going to school, and kind of just fell in love with the industry. And it's a corny saying, and I feel like a dork saying it, but my boss always says that we just got bit by the hospitality bug. So I guess there's some truth to that.
Fantastic, thank you. If each one of you will answer this question as well, this was another one asked by Blair, one of our attendees. It's what is your typical daily schedule for a GM? In any order.
I'll go ahead and take it first. I start my day with checking the financials from last night, making sure that everything is in line. Then I report that out to our owners and management company. Then I hold a stand-up with all of my department heads, and occasionally we'll wander to a department and include all of the talent members. And then I walk my property and make sure everything's good. I reforecast, look at the numbers coming in and see if we're on pace to make our revenues. I pretty much, check the forecast every day just to make sure that we're obtaining what we can, and if not, then we have a discussion about holding back our pocketbook and making sure that we're not ordering anything excessive. And then I respond to any guests, surveys, good or bad, any online reviews, and work with my talent members on any issues or any kind of moment trainings that we need. And work on any projects. I do a lot of capital projects. So we're at 7 years old now, the property, so I'm getting ready to renovate. So a lot of that.
Great. The other panelists?
So my day's pretty similar. I actually start my day by doing more of a walk of the property and greeting all the associates, and then line up and then dive into the financials. From there, I have a slew of weekly meetings that happen on a regular basis, one-on-ones with managers, yield meetings, sales meetings, etc. And then, so about half my day is spent in meetings, and then the other half is really spent reviewing analytical data, reporting information out. As Jennifer mentioned, about capital projects. That's also a huge thing that I work on. We're actually about to go under renovation later this year, so that's a major focus for me at the current time, which takes up a significant part of my day. And then just, connecting again with associates, reviewing what our guests are talking about us out in the social channels, and just making sure that everything is running smoothly.
Fantastic. Andrew?
Yeah, so my property's still pre-opening, so I kind of just stomp around a construction site all day. But once we open, and what I've done previously as a GM, it's very similar to what Jennifer and Nikki said. It's property walk, it's financials, revenue management, it's guest interactions, and then meetings. I mean, you wouldn't believe as a GM how many meetings we sit through on a daily basis. It's almost absurd.
Great, thank you. And then we are approaching closer to the end of our webinar, so to the attendees, if you guys have any additional questions, please try to submit those now so we can get those answered. Back to the last couple questions that I do have here. What are some unique initiatives that you set in place that made you stand out? And maybe we can start with Andrew.
I guess one of the things that I really started to do and brought into the management company is there's a program out there called Green Engage. So most brands, they have their own green initiative. Green Engage is kind of a industry-wide one. So that's something that I brought into my property, and then we brought it over to the other properties, and we were actually the first management company to have our entire portfolio green engaged. So I think that's one I could think of off the top of my head.
Great. Jennifer?
Well, it's maybe not one that I came up with, but the Aloft brand is very unique in its lifestyle, and we oftentimes have a runway happen with my talent members in the middle of our Remix lobby. So when we're kind of in a rut or just need to be re-energized, we turn up the music and just start strutting. So it's a little different, but it gets everybody moving and creates a fun environment. And the guests love it too. If they happen to be there, great. So.
That's fantastic. Thank you. Nikki? You're muted, Nikki.
Sorry, got it. So something I did at one of my properties when I was working for Kimpton, we had our complimentary wine hour, of course, every night. And at the time, I had just started with the company, and there was a huge initiative on enhancing the program, changing the name, and really making it local to your hotel and your community. So we were able to launch nightly programming. So we would have our chef come down to the lobby and do a live action station to showcase the food that we were serving. And certain nights a week we would have actually shake-offs. So a manager who was hosting would do a mixology shake-off with the head bartender, and then our guests could sample it, and they would vote on the winner. So it just kind of added some fun and excitement for our guests as well as the host. So that was a really fun way to get our guests engaged and our associates engaged, and it kind of was the start of a time when programming needed to be switched up. That whole when you get comfortable, you should change things up thing.
Did you ever win any of those shake-offs, Nikki?
Yes, my Mezcal Margarita was a big hit.
Fantastic. Okay, and then this will be our closing question, I guess, is what is your final piece of advice? The one piece of advice you find most crucial, most important that you would like to share with the attendees who are all under 30 professionals who are looking to reach that GM role. Andrew, I'll turn that to you first.
Yeah, I think it's just, work hard, do everything you can to stand out, be the best that you can be, learn as much as you can. And then, people progress and move up at different times, and people learn at different paces. So if you started with someone in the industry and they're at a different level, don't get discouraged. Just keep pushing. You'll get your opportunities, and when you do, take advantage of them.
Fantastic. Thank you. Jennifer?
Be confident in what you do, and be confident with what you bring to the table. If you're doing things moral and legal, then stay on the up and up and just be confident with what you're doing.
Great, thank you. Nikki?
Work hard. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Be involved and think outside the box.
Perfect. Thank you so much to the panelists for giving us a lot of insight and giving us their roadmap to their success and providing you guys. Well, actually, there's one question that all of a sudden got a lot of activity on, so we'll stop and I'll ask this question and then we'll close. How do you deal with owner demands that are probably sometimes in the opposite direction with the management company's views, and sometimes your owner's view, or sometimes, let me rephrase that. Okay. How do you deal with owners' demands that probably sometimes is in the opposite direction with the management company's views and sometimes your own view as a GM? Is there a difference with independent properties in terms of dealing with owners? I'll leave that as a free question for whomever would like to answer.
So I'll jump in, I'll answer, and then I'll bail out quickly. I've been with my company for over 10 years. We are owners in the management company, so I don't have to deal with it.
Oh, but that's a hard one though, Andrew. Good for you. And I too am in your same situation right now. But I previously worked at the Hilton here in Kansas City, the President property, and the owner is local, and my management company is in San Antonio. So you really have to walk a fine line. Now, if the owner wants you to do something, you know, you kind of in an ultimate way, you work for them. But, you know, if it's something unrealistic and you don't feel good about it, your management company has your back. So you should always, always, regardless of the request, keep your management company in the loop and just say, hey, this is what the owner wants, what's your feedback, or hey, I did this, just to let you know. Never let your management company get caught off guard or be out of the loop.
Great, thank you. Anything to add, Nikki?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I work for a REIT, which is Real Estate Investment Trust. So these are companies that are publicly traded. So it's incredibly demanding ownership side, and then of course you have the demands from your management company. But just as Jennifer was saying, it's a fine line, and it's all about communication. And at the end of the day, I mean, the owners put you there for a reason, and they do trust your judgment and what you're doing. And if you feel strongly that something's not going to work for a certain reason, if you can back up your reasoning with data, they will stand by you, and so will your management company. Again, I think it's just all about open lines of communication. And sometimes you go head to head, and sometimes you have to flex a little bit. But be willing to try new things, and don't just always jump to the conclusion that the guests are going to hate it, because sometimes they put pressure on us to maybe, you know, charge more or charge for amenity that we haven't, or remove something that's been complimentary in the past. And I think that sometimes we have to give a little to them so we can take a little in return.
Great, thank you. And once again, thank you so much to the panelists for joining us and sharing their advice. Everyone that's in attendance, I would encourage you guys, if you can, to join the AHLA Under 30 Gateway. We hope to do more webinars and provide you guys lots of content to further your career, whether it's in operations as a general manager or in other hospitality disciplines. I'd also encourage everyone to take a look if the opportunity presents itself to join the Under 30 Gateway in Washington, D.C. for the Legislative Action Summit, which is an opportunity where you get to lobby in front of congressmen and women and petition on behalf of the hospitality industry. Thank you so much for attending. Again, thank you so much to our panelists, and I look forward to hearing your guys' feedback, and everyone have a wonderful weekend. Take care.